Happy Campers, Todd here, Great American RV SuperStores. Today we're doing a full technical walkthrough on our Grand Design Solitude. This should cover everything as far as the floor plan for pretty much all the Solitudes. We're not worried about specific floor plans, but more the components and type of stuff that comes with the Solitude and operation of those items. If you want a deeper dive in some of these items, you can find that in our HAPS Helpful Hacks playlist on the Great American RV YouTube channel. In the meantime, while we're waiting, hit like, follow, and subscribe. And as we start in the front, of course, we have our Kingpin. You hook up to your truck. You want to do that pull test after you've locked in to make sure you have your pin locked in properly and everything on here before you take off and lift those legs. Otherwise, that's going to end badly. Up here also, we have our emergency breakaway. What this does is, as long as you have a good 12-volt battery in there, if something happens to your hitch and this pin and everything releases from the truck, this cable right here is going to pull out of that box and go with your truck, and that will activate the brakes on your trailer and bring it to a stop. Key component right here is this loop. You want to get a lanyard or something and hook this to something on the truck itself, not the hitch, because if the hitch is what fails and it goes with the trailer, this cable is going with it, it's not going to pull the pin out, no good done, right? So we want to make sure that we hook it to something proper on the truck, in the bed of the truck, to make sure that it doesn't release. Cargo handle, something like that. We also want to make sure that this pin is inserted into this box at all times, otherwise your brakes will be activating when you don't want them to. Behind our Kingpin, we can see our cable for our 7-way plug. That is going to transfer all of our lights from our towing vehicle to our trailer, including our blinkers, running lights, and so on. Now, you won't find any fuses in line between this 7-way and your lights on the trailer. All those fuses are going to be located under the hood of your towing vehicle. So you want to check your owner's manual and see where that stuff's located. It's going to say like trailer blinker, trailer running lights, trailer brake lights, so on and so forth for that. Now through here, you're also going to have a battery charge line that'll go to your battery over there. And while your vehicle is running off of the alternator, it will be charging your battery while you're traveling or while that vehicle is running. You're also going to have your brake controller line. So your brake controller on your towing vehicle that activates the brakes on the trailer passes through here as well, and it will send a charge voltage to the brakes, telling them when to turn off and on. Now in our front compartment right here, click our little light on. We do have a in-motion light up here. You'll have that in most of your bays. Number 2 is the motion sense. Number 1 is on all the time. There's a little switch up there, and you have a little motion sensor on it. Next to that is your inverter. What an inverter does, it changes 12-volt battery power into 110 power in order to turn on things like your refrigerator, your TV, coffee maker, charge your phone, stuff like that. So you would use this in the event you are dry camping somewhere and you don't have a place to plug into your shore power. So we would use that. On the wall right there, we're going to notice our slide control for our in-wall slide out system in our bedroom, which will be our shore slide, which will be our Schwintech. So that is the override controls for that. It has some information on it to override that. The board next to our inverter is going to be for our leveling system, our hydraulic leveling system right here. We have our hydraulic 6-point leveling on our Solitudes. So we have all that right there. That one is not going to have any overrides on it. We do have a video on how to override our hydraulic system in the event that that ever comes to a fault, motor goes out, so on and so forth. We have a video on our HAPS Helpful Hacks section that goes over that. Check it out. Now, one thing I'll tell you as far as maintenance for that is you want to make sure that your hydraulic fluid is filled. We have our fill line right here. Now, of course, it's not at that level because we have slide outs extended, jacks extended, all that stuff. So anytime we check that fill level and want to add fluid to it, we need to make sure that all of our slide outs are fully retracted, all of our jacks are fully retracted. Then we check our level and add if necessary. If we add some now, when we retract all that stuff, it's going to overflow out of that tank and make a big mess in our compartment. So make sure we're checking that properly. Beyond that, keep your rams all nice and clean, wipe them down. You can lubricate them if you want to, but mainly just keep them clean. Next to our inverter, going back over here, we'll have that inverter disconnect. So basically it's just disconnecting the inverter from service so it won't drain your battery from use if you're not using it. Down below that, we're going to have our solar controller system right here. So we do have solar on our unit. Our solar comes down, changes solar power into charging power for our 12-volt system. That'll come off of that controller there. And we have our solar disconnect right next to it. If we want to disable that system, we can go ahead and turn that off right there. Now over to the left, we'll see this under this Magnum cover right here. There is a big old fuse in there. That fuse is for our inverter system, and that is a protection fuse. So if our inverter is not working, we want to check continuity on that fuse and make sure that 12-volt power is passing through it. If not, then we blew that fuse and we need to replace it. Now, we talked about the inverter, and I'll mention, we'll show you how to turn all that stuff on inside. We're just showing you where the placement is of all this on the interior of this front compartment. We have our battery disconnect to the left of that. Now, the battery disconnect does exactly that. It disconnects our battery from use. Now, when do we use that is always the biggest question. We use that when we are storing our unit unplugged. You're parking it in the barn, storage lot, yard, whatever, and you don't have a place to plug it in, then we turn that battery disconnect off. That way it doesn't draw from our battery. Now, if you are plugged in, you are using it even if you aren't plugged in. Anytime you're going in and out of the unit, you want to have lights on, stuff like that, or you are plugged in and camping, you want to make sure that disconnect is on. Number one, our power will not feed through to our lights if it is off. And number two, our battery will not charge if it is off and plugged in. So when we're plugged in, a converter, which is the opposite of the inverter, changes 110 power to charging power for our battery. So we have to make sure that that's on, otherwise our battery is not going to charge during that period. Behind that cover right there is all the wiring and stuff for our 12 volts. You'll see some resettable breakers and stuff back there. No need to really go in there. Those resettable breakers are automatic, so we can go ahead and leave that cover on with not much to worry about there. Now, we will notice here, this one on the left, that is for our solar, and we'll see if this is tripped. We'll see a little red trigger right there sticking out. To reset it, just click it back in. If you need to test it, push that button, so on and so forth. So that's our 12-volt breaker for the solar. And then to the right of that, we're going to see our little dongle for our Dexter tow assist. So we'll have a little more information on that. You can hook your Bluetooth app to that and monitor that system. That's where that dongle is located there. Pretty much wraps up everything in our front compartment right here. Not much else to look at. Of course, our battery will go there. And then we have already prepped for our generator system. If we choose to install one in here, we have that firebox already installed. Move over to our driver's side here. We'll show you, this is our Schwintek slide system. We can see the gear track here and up at the top. We do have a video that goes over override on this system. Pretty popular video on our YouTube channel. If you have any issues with it, that's where you want to go check it out. On the side here, we have our Dexter tow assist. We'll go over some information on that right now. This is our Dexter tow assist right here. We have this, and this light is going to let you know when it is active. To operate it, it's real simple. You plug your 7-way in, you push on the brakes on your towing vehicle, and it will go through its self-check. Takes about 5 seconds. You may see the lights changing colors, but everything, the top one should go green and stay green. If it doesn't, then we have a problem. Either it's going to be amber or green and amber, and we need to check that out. So we do that by downloading our Dexter Tow Assist app, and we can link it up through Bluetooth to our Dexter system, and we can see what our warning is and possibly reset it, fix it, give you some diagnostics on what's going on right there. So what your Dexter Tow Assist actually does is it is an ABS system, so that keeps your brakes on your unit from locking up and gives you a good even stopping through all your wheels. Also add in sway mitigation, which reduces the sway as you're traveling down the road. And then it also gives you an odometer so you can keep up with maintenance on your unit. There's plenty of videos about that tow assist system, but there's not a whole lot that you can dig into on it, but you can find more information at Dexter TV, which is on YouTube. You can find a few more videos on it. But like I said, it's a plug and play. You hook it up to your phone to get a little more information on it. As long as it stays green, you're good. All right, so we covered that. First compartment here is our LP tank system. So we have one of these on each side of our unit, very first compartment. Both of them are going to lead to our dual propane regulator right here. We notice pigtails going to it. These are all rubber lines. Over time, these things are going to crack, peel, deteriorate, all that stuff. And this is carrying LP, okay? That's a dangerous flammable gas. So we want to make sure we monitor that and change these out whenever necessary. It's a good idea to get a leak check done on your LP system after that, anytime you change any components on it. And it's also a good idea just to have it done on a yearly basis in general. As we move over to our actual regulator right here, we'll notice on the top of it we have a little selector valve. Okay, arrow pointing to this pigtail here. It's going to go over to this tank, and then we can swap it to go to the other tank. So we're choosing which one we want to be our primary tank. We turn both of these tanks on. Whichever one we have set to our primary, it's going to use that tank first until it runs dry, and then it will automatically start picking up from that second tank without interrupting service. At which point, if we notice that this is red, then we just go ahead and swap it over to this secondary tank. Should turn green if you have enough in it. And then this becomes your primary. You can go get your other one refilled. That's all there is to a dual propane regulator. Not much to figure out there. And in this compartment here, we have our leveling system for our hydraulics. We'll go over that information right now. That is our Titan leveling. So here we are on that base camp touchscreen for our Titan jacks. We can see at the bottom left corner, we have a quick shortcut to turn our lights off and on the jacks themselves. If we hit this question mark right here, we have a QR code, which can generally also be found in that LP compartment or one of the other doors. You'll see that sticker, and it's going to bring you to literature on these specific Titan jacks. It'll run you through the same stuff that I'm gonna run you through. It'll also go over information on how to override these jacks in the event that your pump fails and how to manually retract them or extend them. So moving in, we can see our default pin, which is from the factory, 5241. And we hit the green check and we're on it. So immediately we're gonna go into our options to start off with. I'm gonna show you that if we go into our current level, this is going to tell us what the level of our unit is. If we go into auto level, this is going to be our different set points. We'll go over that information here shortly. If we go to jack lights off and on, we can adjust the brightness and the timer on how long we want them to run. Turn them off and on here. We have our different modes, our manual mode, which is if we want to manually extend or retract the jacks. We click that screen again. Our front jacks are going to run simultaneously. You can't do those individually. You'll hit extend and retract. If we want to turn those off, click them again. We can do our rear individually, left or right, and extend or retract. Get out of that screen. Go back into our options and modes. We have our arrival. Now these are the different screens that you're going to see dependent on where you are in your camping trip. So arrival is right when you get to the campground. The system detects all your jacks are up, so it's going to assume that you are arriving, and it'll come up with the bigger option of extending land gear, retracting landing gear, and then auto level, which are the options that you would generally use right when you arrive at the campsite. Our next mode is our auto level. It's just going to give you the different set points here of what auto levels we can go to. Now we have our factory set auto level, which is going to be our 0 point null. It's what we consider level by the factory. They take a 4-foot level, put it in the unit. Now if you find where the factory setting is off or not to your desire, you can hit this 3 dots up here at the top right, and that will bring you to be able to change that setting. We hit change, and just like our manual mode, we can select the jacks that we want to extend and retract and get a 4-foot level, put it in your unit, and you can adjust it. When you're done, you'll hit set, and it will save that factory setting. Now, every time you go to auto level from that point, that will be the setting that it goes to. Now you have your set points 1, 2, and 3. This is for options such as maybe you're storing your unit. Let's say that's what we want our set point 1 at. We can hit those 3 dots on the side and we can change it. And let's say we want to nose down our camper or nose up our camper so the water will run off of our unit. We can put these jacks whatever formation we want and kick it up within a 5-degree slant. It won't do over that. And it won't save that set point. So keep that in mind. If it doesn't save, you're probably out of that 5-degree margin. Once it's set, it'll bring you out of that screen. And now when you hit set point 1, it'll go to that nose up or nose down position, whatever you chose it to be. Now set point 2 and set point 3 can be whatever you desire, the same thing. So let's say, you know, these campers are heavy on your truck sometimes, and you have to pull up to a dump station to dump, and you're nose down, and you have a pipe that points to the back of the unit. So all that water isn't really draining out of the pipe. You can do set point 2 for your front landing gears, just lifting the camper up enough to add a little slope to it and allow that water to drain the rest of the way out of that pipe. So you can be creative and have whatever options you want set in there. Our last mode is our departure mode. This would be after you've auto leveled and everything, you're ready to go home. This is likely the screen that's going to pop up. So we would return to hitch height. Now this height is going to be the height that you were at just before you hit auto level. Generally that height is going to be where your truck disconnected from your camper. So your hitch should go back up to that hitch height, and when you press that button, it's going to hit that point. Now we can extend and retract manually to adjust that if we're a little bit off. And when we're done, we're hooked up to our truck, we know that that hitch is secure, everything's good, we can hit retract all, and all of our jacks will come up. Our next option in here is dark theme or light theme. We can go ahead and choose that option. That just changes the background of our screen. Now, like I said, every time you open this up, if you've done something different, it's going to generally have a different screen based on what the level of those jacks are. So like I said, we unlocked it here and it comes to that extend landing gear. Basically it's saying we're in arrival mode. If we went into auto level and the screen blacked out after that, we came back to it, it's probably gonna have auto hitch height as that option. So whatever the screen pops up to, you have the option to go into a different one by going into options, then modes, and it's going to once again bring you to a different screen. We can run manual mode, we can run our auto level mode. No matter what, you can get to any of these screens. It's very repetitive. You just have to go through the options and get them. Otherwise, it's going to suggest what option you want next in order to run your jacks. Now, you can also hook this up to your Bluetooth on your phone. We'll show you how to do that next. So this is the tag that I mentioned earlier that you can generally find in one of your compartment doors. And if not, you can find it on the actual brains of the auto leveling system, generally found in that front storage compartment or your pass-through compartment on your unit. So what we want to do is download our LCI One Control app. We can scan this QR code right here. This will bring us to the App Store to download that app. Once we've done that, you'll have to enter a series of information, including the make, model, and year of your unit, as well as your VIN number. Once you've done that, you'll scan this QR code right here, and this will grant you access to the system. Then it's going to ask you for a password. You'll enter your password into the system, and then it'll bring you into the options to be able to control that app. Now, we do have the information on that app. It is pretty repetitive to that screen. It gives you a few more options in there. We have more information on the full video on our Titan system. All right, we've gone over our Titan leveling. Here you're gonna have a power reel for your 50 amp power cord. hook it in there, and then we can turn our little button right here and roll it in. You're gonna have a little resettable breaker right there. If it's ever overamped, you'll see that pushed out. Go ahead and push that in. Do have an override release right there to be able to unroll that system out of there. We want to go ahead and turn that whenever we are unrolling, otherwise it's locked in, right? Beyond that, you're going to have your storage space in there. On this side, we're going to have all our water hookups. We'll talk about that right now. So as we see up here, we have a quick connect for a little cold hose right there. We can hook it up hot and cold. We have our water pump right here, which is going to pull from our fresh tank. So when we pull from our fresh tank, that is our onboard water storage. That's providing water to all of our fixtures from that. We only use that if we are not hooked up to city water. If we're hooked up to city water, then we leave that off and we just hook our city water hose up here, which we'll talk about in a minute, and we provide water to our fixtures. So water pump only on when we are pulling from our fresh tank. That switch right there below our water pump is going to turn our little outdoor light off and on by our sewage dump. Off to the left side, we're going to see satellite, cable, and auxiliary. Satellite is going to provide a wire straight to our living room area. If we have a receiver to hook up there, tripod, satellite, motion satellite, whatever, to hook in right there, set up outside our camper, then we can do that. Cable is going to be cable from the campground. That'll go out to all the ports in the unit, all the ports out to the TVs, and then below that we have our auxiliary bedroom, which if you have a second L&B for your satellite, you'll run there, and then that'll produce to the port there for a second receiver. Below all of that is our water valve system, okay? So let's run through that. We have dry camping, okay? So that's what we talked about when we use our water pump. We would go into this configuration right here. That is going to pull water from your onboard storage tank into your fixtures, okay? Power fill tank, that is how we fill that onboard storage tank. So we would turn our valves to that configuration right there. And now we would hook water up to our city water connection here, turn the water on, and now it's going to begin to fill our freshwater tank. We have a meter on the inside. We'll show you that goes over how to monitor that stuff, but that's how you fill it, okay? City water, we would turn to that combination, and we just, if we have a water connection at the campsite, we hook our water hose up here, we're good to go. We have turn the water on, we have pressurized water just like we do at home without having to do anything else. Next is going to be winterization. Now that is if we are setting up for the winter time. We're ready to go ahead and drain all the water out of our unit by going to our low point drains, draining the water out, blowing air through our system, getting water out, and then we want to fill our system with antifreeze. Now we do that by going to that setup right there. We'll hook a hose to this and put the other end into our tub of antifreeze, kick the water pump on, and that is going to siphon that antifreeze out into all of our fixtures. Now there's a lot more steps to that. You want to check your owner's manual for that, or check out our video on HAP's Helpful Hacks, and that'll go over a little more detail. But that's what we do when we are preparing for wintertime. If we want to siphon to sanitize the tank by a pump, then we're going to go to this setup, and that's pretty much the same thing as winterization, but we are changing the valve configuration to go into our fresh tank via our city water connection from a tub of bleach and water, and that will once again kick that water pump on, and that will go ahead and put that bleach and water configuration into our fresh tank to be able to sanitize it. All right, that is a lot of information on there. Your owner's manual goes over it as well, but that will give you a slight visual. Below that, we're going to have our black tank flush. Our black tank flush is going to be used when we are dumping our tanks. We'll go over a little bit more information on that in a second. Just know that that's where it is. Also in here, you have a sticker for that Titan leveling system. It goes over more information, QR codes that'll bring you to the Compass Connect app, which will allow you to do some auto leveling and stuff through there depending on your setup, as well as turn lights off and on your unit. Over here, we're gonna have our water filtration system. We see our filter over here on the side. You would use this tool right here to remove this. One thing we wanna do is make sure we depressurize our system. So open up a water spigot, turn your water off, whatever, and make sure we're depressurizing this system. That way when we pull this off, we don't have water pressurized on there. It's gonna make this easier to pull off. Ice maker shutoff valve, that is going to be kind of part of our winterization, right? So if we want to turn that off, we go ahead and turn this valve like that, and then that shuts off water to our ice maker. We want to pull that line off, drain the water out of it, and that prepares it for winterization. Or if we have a leak going to that refrigerator, we need to shut it off quickly. This is where you would do that. Down below that, we mentioned these are our low point drains. These are our valves for our dump system, okay? So we see our connection right there, our 4-inch connection. That is where we hook our sewer hose up, and then we put that to our septic or our site there at the campsite or our dump station, whatever the case may be. So once we've done that, we're ready to dump. Now let's talk about what's in our tanks first. Our black tank comes from our toilet, so that's gonna be our sewage, and our gray tanks come from our sinks and our showers. So that's just soapy water basically. You might have a little food debris from your kitchen sink, so on and so forth, but fairly clean water in there. So with that being said, if we have a hose hooked up there at our connection there and it's going to the campsite, we can actually open these valves and leave them open all the time because they can fill up, especially if you have several people there taking showers, so on and so forth. Those tanks can fill up kind of quick. So if we want to just let it drain out, we can open those valves, leave them open until your camping trip is done, whatever you want to do there, right? Or just dump them whenever they get full. Our black tank, however, that is our toilet water, so we're putting some actual solids in there along with toilet paper and stuff. We want to keep liquids in that tank. If we don't, those solids and toilet paper are going to dry up over time and get stuck inside that tank. So this valve needs to stay closed until we're ready to dump. When we're ready to dump, open it up, let everything start draining out, hook our black tank flush hose up. That's going to lead to a port on the other side of this tank and help push that debris to the valve that we're exiting everything out of. Now we have some pro advice on how to flush that tank out a little bit more in our Haps Helpful Hacks section. You can check that video out. It gives you some pro tips on how to do that. Beyond that, when we are done and satisfied with flushing our tank out, we close that off and we want to add several gallons of water to that system. Otherwise, whatever small debris might still be in that tank is going to dry up in there. And plus, while you're driving down the road, those couple of gallons of water will slosh around, kind of clean that tank up in there as well. So make sure that we have this valve closed all the time. A little helpful hack, on your last day, close these gray tank valves, and when you take a shower and stuff, let that water build up. When you're done flushing out your black tank, open this gray tank valve. That soapy water will help kind of clean and flush that septic hose out. That way it's a little cleaner whenever you go to pick it up. Of course, you have your door here at the bottom that you can route your cable and water hoses and all that stuff through. That way you can close your compartment door. Off to the side right here, we have our Furrion on-demand water heater system. That's going to be controlled on the inside by a little monitor. It takes 12 volts to power it up, and of course propane to heat that water. Below that, we're going to have our Furrion furnace, 12 volts to power it up, propane to heat the air. Once again, controlled by our thermostat on the inside. We'll go over a little bit later. 50 amp power cord right here. We're going to put it in, turn it to the right to lock it in, turn our little retainer ring to go ahead and keep it locked in. You don't want kids being able to pull on this and automatically pull it out, because if it is plugged in, that is dangerous voltage right there. So make sure we're locked in securely. Once we're locked in, then we plug it into our shore power. We don't want to plug this in second because there's a little plastic plug on there, the heat, amperage, so on and so forth, arcing, sparking, you're gonna mess up that plug. So plug this in first, plug that in last. When we're unplugging, unplug that first, unplug this last. All right, moving over to our slide out right here, we can see all our wiring. We see our freezer line going through here. We have actual LP. We'll see a quick connect there. That is mainly for service needs. If we need to disconnect LP to our oven, we can go ahead and do it right here. We can shut the LP off right here. There's that little valve right there. Now you can't disconnect this line unless this valve is shut off. If we have it turned on, it will not let you slide back in order to release that. So keep that in mind if you ever mess with that. Now this slide out is a hydraulic slide. We can see our hydraulic ram right there going into our underbelly. Once again, we have a video on how to override that stuff. That's all gonna kind of coincide with our hydraulic jacks there in that front compartment. On the outside of our slide out, we're gonna see a vent right here. That vent is over our microwave to go ahead and exhaust out over our stovetop. If we want to open that up, there's 2 tabs on there. If you don't open it, that air is not going to ventilate out. Those tabs are there, that way when you store your unit, you can go ahead and secure that closed, keep any rodents and stuff from building any nest in there. As we look under our slide out, we can see just past our jack there, see that white handle sticking out and that port right there. That is for our fresh tank system. The 2 blue hoses are for the overflow of our fresh tank system. In case you overflow it, that's where the water is going to go. But the white valve is to dump and empty that out. Now I want to empty it out after trips if we're not using that water, because that water is going to become stagnant over time. Plus, if you don't need it, dump it out. You're just adding extra weight to your unit. So make sure we're doing that on a regular basis. Otherwise, we're going to get some contaminants and stuff in that water, and we don't want all of that. As we move to the back of our unit, we can see we are set up with a ladder to be able to get on the roof and check all of our sealants, our rubber on our roof, all that stuff. Now, why is that important? Well, because that is regular maintenance when it comes to a camper. Want to check the sealant on our roof around our vents. Want to check the sealant around all of our trims, our lights, all that stuff every 60 to 90 days. Owner's manual says so. I'm saying so. Manufacturers aren't going to participate in any water leaks if you haven't been keeping up with your maintenance on your roof, on your sides, all that stuff. Every 60 to 90 days, check that stuff out. You're looking for cracking, peeling, deterioration. If you find it, clean it, reseal over it with the proper sealant. Along with that, you want to clean your roof once a year and make sure you're maintaining the rubber on that roof. You also want to look, see if any tree branches or anything poked any holes in it, opening up a spot for a leak. You want to take care of that kind of stuff. Beyond that, no other big reasons to get on a roof besides to maintain our AC and just make sure it's clean, right? Up top right there, you're also going to see a prep for a backup camera system. That is going to be our Furrion backup camera. Pre-wired with 12-volt power that would activate when you turn your running lights on your trailer. The power on the camera will come on. So we have that there. Down below, you have a receiver hitch with a 4-way plug on the back of it, prepped and ready if you want to tow a trailer for a golf cart, whatever you want right there behind it. Just follow your weight rating. Over here, we're going to have our spare tire, of course, down there at the bottom. And if we see this hole right here, that leads to our pin there. And we pull that pin out, we can go ahead and crank and let that spare tire down. As we take a look at our slide out, another hydraulic slide on this side. Not much different from our other side besides size. And we can see our axles there, so on and so forth, okay? Another big spot for sealant. I want to check these trims right here on that slide out. Do have slide toppers up on your roof. We have 2 awnings. We'll talk about our awnings in a second. Outdoor speakers controlled by our radio on the inside. We'll jump into the front right here. We have our second propane tank right here that is going to go to our dual propane regulator there on the other side. In our compartment here, we see we are prepped and ready with our tire link system, which means we have sensors on the tires to keep up with the tire pressure as well as temperature. And we can use our monitor that comes with it to keep up with that. Now, cool thing about these Solitudes is in our pass-through bay, they've started making this compartment a little bit easier to access. So we got enough flashlight power in here. As we crawl in, we can see the back of our water heater, our furnace, our plumbing system, and down here we can see our 12-volt water pump. Now on that water pump there is a little screen. See that clear cover? You need to pull that off and clean it every now and again. You're going to end up with some just dirt, algae, so on and so forth. We want to clean that up so we're not restricting the flow of our water through our system. Beyond that, not much to maintain with that water pump. We're also going to notice in here we have our transfer switch. If we were to add that generator in here, this is going to swap between shore power and generator power with whichever one you are using. Obviously, that is already set up in your system. You just, of course, have to add that generator. And then we're going to notice our converter right here. So that silver box with the black and red wire coming off of it, that's our converter. It's plugged into the back of our breaker panel that we'll see on the inside, and that is charging our battery. We are plugged in, so it's changing 110 voltage to charging voltage. You can notice a couple of fuses on there. Those fuses are protection fuses. If we were able to touch these two wires together, then of course those fuses are going to blow. So if your converter is not working, number one, we want to check for 110 voltage. Number two, we want to check those fuses on there. Over here, we're going to see our control board for our touchscreen panel and all our controls on our unit. Not much to worry about with all that stuff. Only dig into that if grand designer or technician asks you to. And as we slide over here, we have a cable and satellite output. So this is where we would hook up for our outdoor TV. We have a 110 powered outlet right there, another motion sense lighting. We have a switch right here, turn our pass-through bay off and on. And then this other switch is to turn that light by your kingpin by the front cap off and on right there. As we move out of our unit, we can see right here on the side, we have another spray port connection. We can move that coiled hose over. Another GFCI protected outlet. Now you're going to hear me say GFCI protected outlet. You're going to find that in every wet location. So all your outlets that are outside, GFCI protected. In the bathroom, in the kitchen, all that stuff GFCI protected. We're going to show you where that reset is for that system when we get inside. We're going to talk about our vacuum system real quick. We have this road vac system. It's going to come with our hose kit that we can hook up inside our unit or out here. Slide that open, hook our hose up, and we can vacuum out our pass-through. We can vacuum inside, whatever the case may be. To empty it, pull this little tab right here, open it up. If that bag was hooked up, it'd be hooked up right here. And then you just swap that bag out and then stick it back in. You do have a little filter right here. You want to make sure that's cleaned. Stick it back in, pull that tab again, and you're ready to vacuum again. Another quick connect right here. This is for outdoor stove, grill, whatever you want. Remember that valve has to be off for that quick connect to be connected. Then turn it on for flow to actually pass through. That is all going to come from our propane tanks right here. Now our awning. Awning is a sunshade mainly. It can go ahead and shield you from a little bit of light dew, light rain, stuff like that. But beyond that, it's sunshade. If it starts coming down, raining, crazy, roll that awning in. High winds, roll the awning in. Leaving your unit for an extended period of time, roll your awning in. Better be safe than sorry. Now the one key rule that you need to follow with your awning is we want to pitch it or tilt it, okay? So we're gonna get light dew on there. We're gonna get some AC condensation, stuff like that from our rooftop. What we wanna do is go over to either our front or our back. It's gonna be the same arm, but you only do it to one of them, okay? So either that arm or this arm. Grab it, pull it down like that. Now our awning is tilted. All that water can run off and drain onto the ground right there. You just choose which side you want to do it on. Our awning on our other slide out is going to be the exact same way. So follow that same instruction there. Now let's talk about our steps real quick. Open our door, have our steps. Now to pick them up, lift them, we're going to have a little shock assist right there off to the left side. That's going to help you put it up there with one hand easily. When we bring it down, just drop it. Okay, same thing. We're using that shock system, no hands on it. Very easy to use. We can close our door, all that stuff. Main thing to remember about our steps is after we go through our auto level process with our jacks, we want to level our steps. We do that with this little tab right here. We just push it in, and that is going to release this leg right here. We go ahead, extend it, retract it, whatever we need to do to get level steps. Want to make sure we have a nice flush threshold right here so our door can close properly. And then we also want to make sure that we're not making any contact with our frame and our door right here, causing any damage. Beyond that, we have our safety rail right here. Hit it there at the bottom. We can retract it, have a little pin to put through the hole here for travel. To extend it back out, grab by the bottom, and we have our safety rail set up. Let's go check out the inside. All right, so as you walk into your unit somewhere, generally in a cabinet, somewhere surrounding nearby, we're going to have our main control panel. And so we mentioned the Compass Connect app. You can download, control some of this stuff, monitor some of this stuff from there. But otherwise, you're going to come here to do it. So we can see up there we have our monitor for our fresh tank, black tank, and our 2 gray tanks. This will be according to however many tanks you have on your particular unit, of course. We also have our battery charge right there as well. We have our lights, our Bluetooth to connect to our Compass Connect app, our awning, porch lights, so on and so forth. So all of our lights are controlled here except for stuff in our slide outs. Stuff in our slide outs is either going to be on the light itself, or there's going to be a switch located in that slide out to be able to turn that off. All these lights control are mainly just like your ceiling stuff, your pendant over your island, stuff like that. We're gonna have a generator button to start and stop that generator. Once again, pre-wired in here. If you don't have a generator, it's not gonna do anything. Our 12-volt water pump and our tank heaters. Our tank heaters are going to help us in cold weather. It's 12-volt mat, it'll heat up, keep those tanks from freezing. Let's jump back to our water pump real quick. So that water pump is going to be on demand. In the event that we call for water, we turn our faucet on, that water pump's going to kick on and start running and pull water from our tank. Now when you turn off your fixtures, that water pump should shut off, right? The light's going to be on, but the water pump itself should shut off and just pressurize the system. If you're certain all of your fixtures are closed and that you hear that pump vibrating and running, then that means either our fresh tank is empty or we have a leak somewhere in our system, which will eventually lead to an empty fresh tank. We need to shut that water pump off and investigate before we end up burning it up. So keep that in mind. Our switches down here, awning, slide outs, in and out, all 12 volts on this entire system right here. So if we have any issues, we want to go to our 12-volt fuse panel that we'll show you in a little while and check there. Now our WIFCO system, that is for our solar system right there. Not much to go over with that, pretty plug and play unless you change your batteries and stuff. Beyond that, not going to take a deep dive. It's very easy setup and check your owner's manual for that stuff. You're going to have your wireless option right there, bring internet with you on the go. You can get a SIM card, install it in there, get a monthly charge, and you can have internet with you. So that would be your Wi-Fi system for that, called TravelFi. Moving on, we're going to have our Coleman Mach thermostats. We're going to go over information on that real quick. Now, not all of your thermostats are going to have heat. Only your one for your main living area. So your bedroom, your middle AC, all that stuff are just going to, you have 3 ACs. You're going to have 2 that only have the cool option and 1 that has the heat option. Now, before we jump into it, our cool air is only going to come out of our ceiling vents up here. Our warm air is going to come out of vents like what's below our island right there, down at a low level. So let's go over information on how that thermostat works right now. All right, this is our thermostat for our AC system. When we click that button once, it'll give us the option for mode. Our first mode is cool. We hit that button again, and then we can choose between high or low auto or high and low all the time. So high and low all the time will keep that fan running constantly, even though that compressor is not on. Auto will shut that fan off whenever our compressor is turned off. Once we go ahead and initiate those 2 items, our AC will kick on and we can choose our desired temperature by turning that knob right there. And the larger number on that screen is going to be our room temperature. So here we're set at 63 and our actual temperature is 83. Cool on is going to show you that that system is initiating and that system will kick on. Our next option on there, if we hit that button twice again, is heat. When we go ahead and click it right there, it will bring on the heat, show our room temperature as well as our set to temperature. Our heat is only going to come out of the lower areas. It's not going to come out of that rooftop AC. If you have air blowing out of that rooftop area, then we want to make sure that we don't have the fan on high or low on that cool option. So we would go back to our cool and we would check right here and make sure it's on auto. Our last option on here is cool and heat. In this case, we can go ahead and do the same thing, choose our fan options, just have a set temp in between the furnace and the AC. It will keep that temperature set at that 72-degree mark. Now, in order to turn that system completely off, click it twice again and we can go to off. All right, so we got that covered. More to come about our ceiling assembly. I can't reach that one, so we'll talk about the one in the bedroom. So more to come on how that operates. Let's jump over, let's see right here. We've got our 12-volt fuses in here. Everything is going to be labeled as far as what it goes to. So you have an issue at 12 volts, check your fuses, it's all labeled. We have our breaker system right here. Everything is going to be labeled in here off to the side. And what do we have there at the bottom? GFI. So it says GFI instead of GFCI, but all of those GFCI protected outlets that we talked about in our wet locations, this is where we're going to go to reset that. Now, if we want to test those systems, we go ahead and do that. That is what your breaker is going to look like in the event that it is tripped. All we do is turn it off, turn it back on. Now, if it trips again right away, we want to check that outlet to make sure that it's not wet, and then maybe we have too much stuff plugged into it. Too many heating elements, coffee makers, griddles, blow dryers, stuff like that. Too much of that plugged into that circuit and it's causing it to trip. Unplug some of those items, make sure no outlets are wet, then come try to reset it again, and that'll generally solve your problem. All right, as we move on, we have our Norcold refrigerator system right here. This is going to be a 12-volt fridge. As we can see right here on the side, we got plenty of room in this fridge. This thing is huge. We're also going to have a freezer in here. And I've got some directions for this real quick before we go into how it operates. These are fridges, right? So they're going to freeze, they're going to cool. This goes for outdoor fridges as well. If anytime we have it powered up, when we go to store our unit, we need to shut this system off and defrost it, open the doors, air it out, get the ice and stuff out of the freezer, defrost it, wipe everything down when we store our unit. It's going to reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew to grow in that fridge. And also if we do leave ice and stuff in there for water to drip out, then it's going to damage our wood components around that fridge, and manufacturers aren't going to participate in that kind of repair. So it's considered customer maintenance to maintain that fridge properly and defrost it and get everything cleaned up. All right, so we'll talk about how it operates right here. Power button to go ahead and get this to pop up. We have our freezer, we have our fridge, okay, and obviously we can see numbers that coincide with our temperatures, what we want it set at, right? To shut this system off and on, hold down that power button right there. We're going to see our system is off. To turn it back on, hold it down again, everything powers up. Now we do see our little moon right here, that is night mode. If we want to turn that on, what that does is it reduces the amount of amperage, 12-volt amperage that fridge is using to reduce our load on our battery, hopefully conserving some energy. And it's assuming that it's nighttime, right? So nobody's going in and out of this fridge, so the compressor's not trying to overcompensate for that temperature. The cold air will stay locked in there. You're good to go, okay? So it'll only run, I think, like 8 to 10 hours, and then that automatically shuts off. Moving over to the side here, we have our 110 microwave hood vent, as we talked about. Underneath it, have a couple screens. If they get greasy, you want to go ahead and clean those. Don't forget that vent outside, we need to make sure is open so that air flows out when we actually turn it on. Have our gas stove right here. This is a residential style right here. Now, speaking of gas, okay, so in order to operate, obviously we have to have our tanks on. When we store a unit or get done with a trip, most of the time you're going to turn those tanks off. They'll stay off for an extended period of time. That propane dissipates out of that line. You're going to end up with air in your system. So as far as appliances go, we have our stove, our oven, our on-demand water heater, as well as our furnace, okay? The stove is the first place we want to go when we turn those propane tanks on to bleed the air out of that system. Otherwise, your other items are probably going to go into a fault because there's air in the system, okay? This is the only one we can control manually is our stovetop. So bleeding the air out of the system is done by simply lighting your stovetop, okay? We turned our gas on. We're going to come over here. We're going to pick our burner. We're going to push in on it. We're going to turn it to high, and we're going to wait for it to light, okay? I don't have any propane in this system, so we're going to be sitting here for a long time waiting for it to light if it were. So once it lights, it may take 60 seconds, depending on where your stove is in your LP system, how far that propane has to carry. but this is the quickest way to bleed that air out of that system. So once it lights, let it burn 30 to 60 seconds. We're looking for a nice blue flame all the way around that ring, and then you should be good to go, okay? So high, push down, high, you have to push down to keep it ignited, and then you're good. Set your temperature to whatever you want. Go ahead and cook. Of course, you have knob lights right here. We have an oven light there at the bottom. That's pretty much it for our stovetop. Now for our oven, we're going to pretty much mimic that, okay? We turn to off, but we have a little flame icon, kind of hard to see with that shiny. Push it down on that flame icon, and our burner is actually going to be below that tray right there. So that one is going to be a little bit harder to see if it lit, but we're gonna hold it down for a period of time. The first time you light this after bleeding air out of your stovetop, the oven takes a little bit longer. It's a smaller hole in there. It may take another 60 seconds to get that flame to light in there. Once it does, we want to go ahead and turn that knob to our temperature, and then we should see our burner under here start to light up. So we'll see that whole tube light up and start heating up. If it goes out, we want to go ahead and just reignite it, hold it down for a little bit, because what you're doing is you're warming up the thermocouple in there, letting it know that the pilot is lit, and then we go ahead and turn our temperature, and it'll go ahead and extend the gas out to the rest of that burner. Moving over to our TV and entertainment, all the way over to the side here. This one in particular has a TV lift up and down. If you have that, it is a 12-volt powered motor in there that runs that up and down. Off to the side, we have our radio system that's going to control our speaker system. We can go ahead and push our knob right here. It will control our two zones, zone A and B. So that's interior and exterior. You have Bluetooth, radio. Pretty simple radio system right there. Okay, we're not going to dive too deep into that. Over to the right of that, we're going to see our ports for our TV and our satellite right here coming in. And then off to the right of it, we see that little green light, and there's a little button below it to turn that green light off and on, right? So that green light is our antenna booster. It gives the antenna extra 12-volt boost to pick up antenna channels in your area, so you can pick up a few more. So we want that antenna boost on anytime we are scanning our TV for antenna channels or air channels. If we are hooked up to cable at the campground, we want to turn that little green light off. That shuts off our 12-volt boost. If we don't, we will scramble the channels when we do our scan for cable on our TV. So on for antenna, off for cable, and rescan for your channels on your TV. All right, below that, we have our 110 fireplace right here. If you don't want to use gas, then you can go ahead and kick this puppy on. Turn it on, have our power button off to the right. We can go ahead and change our lighting level right here with our arrow up and down. We can also change our colors with the next one, and you have a remote for this as well, so keep that in mind. You don't have to do it here. You have a timer right here: 30, 1 hour, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 is your max. You have your heat right there, little wavy lines, and then we can set our temperature with that. If we turn our heater on, we can change our temperature right here with our arrows up and down. Go up to, I think, 84 degrees, and it starts back over. If we want to turn that off, we can just hit that button again. If we want to change our flame lights, okay, the bottom one is rocks, I think. The other one is our flames right there. So change it to whatever you want to make yourself happy. We can hit the power button off to the side, not much to that. Off to the left side there, we're going to see our COLP detector. Our COLP detector with our test button there on the side. We want to hit that every now and again and make sure that that alarm is working. 12-volt powered, hardwired into your 12-volt system, and it is going to alert you of any CO or LP gas in your unit. Now these are going to have an expiration date on them. They are good for 10 years. The date is going to be printed on the back. Some of them will have an expiration on the front, so on and so forth, but every 10 years you need to change these out and make sure you put a new one in there so you are covered. Now, one thing we need to keep in mind is we're also going to have smoke detectors in here. We've got one over there in the hallway. Those are 9-volt battery powered. So daylight savings time comes around, change that out. You want to test the button on there and make sure that alarm's working, of course, as well. Not much else to go over. Like I said, you're going to have a number of switches throughout your unit that aren't controlled by that touch panel by the door. You have fold-out couch, so on and so forth. That's pretty much everything in here. Let's go ahead and jump into our bathroom. Oh, passed it up. Vacuum right here. We have our little sweep spot right here. So if we want to sweep up all the dirt, open that up, sweep it in there. That's going to suck it over to our vacuum that's there in the pass-through compartment. If we want to hook our hose up, hook the hose up right here, it'll automatically come on, and then we can vacuum inside of our unit. Really cool system. Jumping into our bathroom, of course you're going to have hot cold for our shower. We're going to have a vent up top. That vent is used to go ahead and get the heat and humidity out of here whenever you take a shower, reduces the chance for mold and mildew. We're going to have our Furrion tankless or on-demand system right here. Turn it on, have the power button on off right there. Power indicator right here, Fahrenheit or Celsius. If you want to change it, click that button. Our flame icon will come on whenever we turn our hot water on, letting you know that it senses hot water flow. Flame icon will come on, let you know that it's heating. If we want to change our temperature, so this is our water output temperature right here. Change it, hit your up and down arrows there on the side. Not much to that. Toilet system, what are we putting in our toilet? Liquids and solids. Okay, so number 1, liquids. Number 2, solids. And then we're also putting toilet paper and chemicals in there as well. Toilet paper, we only want to use RV toilet paper or something compliant with that. That will actually degrade in our tank. If we don't, that toilet paper is going to get clogged up in there. You're going to have a problem later on. So RV toilet paper only, RV toilet chemicals only, and let's jump back to number 1 and number 2 for our liquids and solids. If it's number 1, just liquids, hit the pedal, send it down the drain. Okay. If it's number 2, solids, we want to hold this pedal down just a little bit until water starts coming out of that port, but our valve isn't open at the bottom. Let that tank start, let the toilet start filling up about half to 3/4 of the way, and then we flush it. What we're doing is we're making sure we have enough water in that bowl to send the solids down the drain, preventing it from getting clogged up in the pipes. We're also adding more water to our tanks to make sure that those solids in there don't get dried up. Beyond that, do not put anything else in our toilet. It is going to get clogged up in that valve, and it is going to be an expensive repair. Number 1, number 2, toilet paper, chemicals. That's it, nothing else. All right, moving into our front bedroom, we have another thermostat for our AC system. Let's talk about our ceiling assembly up here. All your ceiling assemblies are going to have these vents right here on the side. There is a filter behind there. Pull these tabs, you can slide that filter out. You need to clean that fairly regularly, more if you have pets. We don't want to restrict the airflow going to our AC and cause an issue with the AC not being able to cycle properly. Okay, so make sure we're cleaning those filters on a regular basis. Beyond that, you're going to have vents on the side. These are quick dump vents. So if we want to cool this area off quickly, then we want to go ahead and open these up. Okay, open both of them up. It's going to cool this area off quickly. Now, if we want air to flow through our ducts right here, then these have to be closed. If they're not closed, that air is not going to flow through the ducts. Same thing goes for our ones in our living room area. So air to flow through our ducts, these are closed. Want air dumped in here quickly, open these up. That covers that. Under our bed, we always have storage. You just grab it at the bottom, lift it up. Behind our TV, we see our ports right there. We have cable. We have that other satellite auxiliary port right there behind it as well if we want to add a second receiver. We are going to be prepped for a washer dryer. We have that hot, cold, and drain line right there on the side. It'll be notated where to put that vent as well. And then that's it. Not much else to see in here. This particular one has that big open closet in the front. It's pretty much a wrap for our Solitude. Got any questions, comments, anything like that? Leave it down there in the comments section. Hopefully this gave you a good refresher and touched on some things maybe you didn't know. That's all I got. You want to watch any of our other videos, we got plenty of them in our Haps Helpful Hacks section that take a deeper dive on a lot of these components. Thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button here at Great American.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.